Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on all of your social medias. Follow us here and follow us there for Pitt sports content you will not want to miss. If you love stress-free Saturdays and hate corrupt ACC officials, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt athletics fix. Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your long weekend of sitting on the couch, not caring about the outcome of games you didn't bet a bunch of money on. But the Pitt Panthers are back in action, and we've got a special treat for you guys. We fired Dylan into the sun. Didn't fire him, just fired him into the sun and replaced him with the Pittsburgh Post Gazette's Christopher Carter. Chris, how you doing today?
Oh, great, guys. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Thank you for being on the show. It's a pleasure.
Of course, glad to be here talking Pitt. Exciting times for 4-0. Shout out to the Pitt Athletics Department's post. They said they were 31-4-2 in fall sports as of Tuesday. So that's an insanely impressive number. A lot of good things going on for Pitt Athletics right now.
Yeah, I love not losing. I don't care what sport it is. Not losing is pretty cool.
Just as we all thought, Heather Lyke was bad luck.
Totally.
Just as we all thought. We can get into that a little bit. Sorry, that was most of the off-air conversation, but we can touch on that whole mess later with the empty AD spot. But right now, the Pitt football team is 4-0. And I think that's what is encompassing all of our collective brain power, all of our waking thoughts for the last month. So, Chris, I got to lead off by asking you.
Sure.
Are we really doing this?
I think Pitt is, man. I think Pitt's in a position, you look at their schedule this year, there is not a team on their schedule that makes me think, oh, God, like when they play this team, they could get destroyed. Now, there are teams that they could very well play that team and get destroyed by, like, anything can happen. But I just look at this team and the way that they have played on offense, the flashes they have shown on both sides of the ball. If they are able to find a mode of consistency, they will get through most of this ACC schedule and look pretty strong. Like this weekend against North Carolina, it's North Carolina. It's a house of horrors in Chapel Hill for Pitt, right? Amarian Hampton's a bad dude. But they have the chance when you see how James Madison dropped 70 points on North Carolina's head. And that doesn't, past other teams doing things, don't guarantee that you're going to do things. But if Pitt comes in and gets the ball rolling, from what they were doing at Youngstown State, what they were doing at the end of the West Virginia game, Eli Holstein is seeing the field properly. I did a film study on him about a week ago, about what he was doing right and how he needs to progress forward. If he checks those boxes, they can win this game at North Carolina. They'll be 5-0, 1-0 in the ACC, and then it starts to feel more real because now you're not just beating teams that might be at the bottom of the Big 12, teams that are FCS schools that you should absolutely beat up on. You're beating the teams that you're going up against to get to the ACC championship, and it's Pat Narduzzi's 1-0 thing. I think it's very real this year. They have a lot. They have a lot of things going their way right now, but they got to stay focused. If they start looking ahead, they start smelling themselves, I think that's when the mistakes will come. So how locked in can Pat Narduzzi keep his guys? I think that's going to be a story for the season.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the schedule because before we realized we were actually like a good football team with a great offense and a good quarterback, we were like, well, the season might be pretty good because our schedule is very favorable. So now that we have a good team and a good schedule, we're starting to think some things. So the bye week just happened, Chris.
Yeah.
You said you did a film study on Eli Holstein.
Mm-hmm.
Been watching all the games. What is one thing that Pitt needs to improve on the most if they want to build on this 4-0 start?
Well, one thing, and it's less about Eli, it's about protecting Eli. He of quarterbacks who I think he is the only quarterback with just 4 starts in college football right now with 57 pressures that he's had to face. Now, that's a very high number. Now, part of that's also the volume of how often Pitt calls plays because they're up tempo. They just naturally have more snaps.
We're not used to that, so I'm glad you pointed that out.
Right, exactly. And I use sports information systems to do a lot of my research, and they do a great job with numbers. And one thing I noticed when I saw that pressure number, I'm like, that's insanely high. But then they had a pressure percentage numbers, like a rate of it, and it was actually like mid-30s in the percentage of how often he was pressured. Still not good. You want to be much lower than that, but like it's not like he's getting pressured every single play. Which when you see 57 snaps, you're like, holy crap, what is going on there? But that's got to be something that they clean up. They have to be able to keep him clean. They can't, he can deal with some pressure, and you've seen it. He's a tough guy, but you want him having to be tough a lot less, because having a tough quarterback is when, Carson Wentz MVP turns into Carson Wentz journeyman. It's when, guys get hurt and it changes the trajectory of their career. And I'm not saying that Eli's going to be that guy, but he is on a really great path right now. He's averaging 3 touchdowns a game. He's literally thrown 3 touchdowns a game as far as passing wise. He is improving with each outing, and I broke that down in my film study. Like, he is seeing things a little bit faster. He's understanding how to counter what defenses are trying to do. Oh, wait, I was having success rolling out the pocket. So guess what? I'm gonna run up the backside B gap. That's how I'm gonna attack these guys with my legs. Those types of things he's adjusting to. But the one thing that can derail that is if you let him continue to get rocked the way he has some games this year. North Carolina's got a tough defensive front. They give up a lot of points, but they can get after the quarterback. If I'm Pitt, biggest thing I worked on in this bye week was, hey, Ryan Baer, Branson Taylor, Ryan Jacoby, James Collier, BJ Williams, Lyndon Cooper, whoever's starting this week, you better block your butts off and keep that dude clean, because if Eli goes down, all this momentum is going to change up. Even though I do think Nate Yarnell could function well and keep this offense moving, I don't think he could make some of the ridiculous plays that Eli has in these 2 ridiculous comebacks they have.
So let's talk specifics on that protection. You are a ball knower and a coverer of the Pitt Panthers. Mm-hmm. What is Pitt doing in that extended period they have off to improve their coverage?
A lot of it's fundamentals. Like there's just times where like defensive
protection. Yeah,
you're fine. There are times where the defensive ends are just getting their hands inside the chest of Ryan Baer and Branson Taylor and just moving them, and just now they don't have leverage. They've got to get to their spots. Sometimes they're not getting there quick enough, and it's the complete picture, right? Like for example, Broderick Jones for the Steelers. His feet were very good in the preseason, but he had his hands. He had an elbow injury. He couldn't punch nobody, and so he would get to the spot, but then his hands were late, and guys would get up in his chest, and then they could throw him wherever he wants. As an offensive tackle, when you're as big as Baer and Taylor are, and they have the size to be NFL offensive tackles if they become good enough, you need to be able to use your long arms to get your hand into the chest of your opponent, and then that is like your anchor point that you're saying, okay, you're not coming in here, so you got to go around me, and then I ride you around. And as you're doing that, that's the 4 or 5 seconds you need for Eli Holstein to make his decision and figure things out. And they have to be more consistent at that. That's a big part of the problem. There's also communication breakdowns. I think, BJ Williams is a young dude. He's still figuring things out. And all in all, this is still a young, for the most part, offense that's still feeling itself out in a high-paced, fast environment. There's a lot of things going on there. But to me, protection is the biggest thing. And I think fundamentals have been the biggest issue so far. And I think Jeremy Darveau has done a good job at shoring up some of the things that I saw last year, but there's a lot to shore up. And I think that it's going to be telling to see how they respond this week after they've had a bye week. Because, week to week, the first 4 weeks, you're prepping for Kent State, then you're prepping for Cincinnati, then you're prepping for West Virginia, and you're studying what these opposing defenses do to try to confuse you while you're also expanding your playbook, and you're looking at that. Now during this bye week, you're able to say, okay, there's no one to prepare for this week. Let's focus on ourselves. What the heck have we been doing wrong? If they come out and they have better protection on Eli Holstein this week against a team like North Carolina that's gotten after the quarterback, that'll be a very good sign for this Pitt offense moving forward.
So do we think priority number 2, shoring up that D line, especially this week. Hampton ain't a bad running back. I think that's what's scaring all of us right now. I mean, obviously, UNC is UNC in Chapel Hill. You said winning there for us is tough as it is. When they've got a running back and we've got some tackling problems, I think that's priority number 2.
It is. It's funny. A Pat Narduzzi's team that is 4-0 has problem in the trenches. If you had told me that a year ago, I'd have said you're high, because like how does that happen? That is literally what Pat Narduzzi's teams that have been the best, that have been really good at, is controlling the line of scrimmage, whether it's getting in your backfield or running the ball all over you. So like that is kind of bizarre, but I think it comes with, this is also a very much revamped defensive front, right? Nikai Johnson, though he's a redshirt junior, it is his first year at D tackle, and he has the most tackles of any defensive lineman. Sean Fitzsimmons hasn't gotten a chance to play. Francis Brew is a freshman who I think is very promising, as is Josier Whittington. As I also think is redshirt freshman Isaiah Neal. They have a lot of young guys that are figuring things out, and Nick James also a guy who's figuring things out. They're figuring out their pacing. I remember covering the 2021 ACC championship team, and one thing that they had going for them was that they all knew each other. They knew how to play this defense. They knew what they needed to do. And even in knowing each other, it took them until like after that Western Michigan game to be like, hey, just stick to your roles, guys. Like stop trying to be Superman. Like if I think that such and such is going to lose his assignment over here, so I'm going to go help him over there instead of doing exactly what Coach Randy Bates told me to do in this matchup. That takes time to build in the moment, in the big games, because there's a lot of things flying around and there's a million calculations you have to make. And then of course, like everyone locking in that same way. It's why it's such a hard sport to play and to coach. But if Pitt's defensive line can show progress in that direction, one thing Pat Narduzzi says, hey, I want my defensive line attacking. He doesn't want, the old school way of, hey, D tackles, eat up 2 blockers, hold them here so that the linebackers can be placed. He wants his D line attacking, let them be penetrators. And I think they need to get better at that. They need to learn how to win quicker at the line of scrimmage. And I think some of them have done a good job. Like I think Nick James has shown some really good flashes at times. I think Nikai Johnson has shown some really good flashes at times. It just has to be more consistent and reliable, because when it is consistent and reliable, then the linebackers aren't guessing where the wins are at. Like it's like, for example, a good running back needs an offensive line that he can know is going to make certain holes work on a certain play. Like if you if I'm playing behind an offensive line that we're designing a run to go to B gap on the strong side, but we can't consistently open B gap. Sometimes it's the C gap. I have to bounce it out wide. Sometimes you're going to make misreads. You're not going to be confident approaching the hole. You need a defensive front in the way Pitt's playing that's going to be able to trust each other that way. It takes time to build that. It takes, collective success to build that. And I think that this 4-0 start has given them ground to say, hey, we haven't figured that out, but guess what? We haven't lost either. So now's their chance to be like, hey, we haven't lost ground while we've learned lessons. So let's see how much progress we've made and apply that to a very good start.
It sounds like Aaron Donald needs to come down to the facility and do those knife drills.
Yeah.
To win quicker.
Donald. He's it's funny. I used to see him around the facility all the time when he would just be training in the off season. Just be like, one day you're just walking to Steelers OTAs and you're like, that's Aaron Donald in the indoor facility, just hanging out. But yeah, they could use somebody doing that. I think, hey, that's what Kalijah Cansey did. He just cut right through your offensive line, and Pitt doesn't have that right now. And so finding that would be a key way to help the defense.
Yeah, but like you said, we haven't been super stellar in that area. Mm-hmm. Still 4-0. So
yes, exactly.
All we need is 1 or 2 guys to step their game up a little bit and become the next Aaron Donald. Simple enough.
Yeah,
that easy. Come on, guys.
Yeah, just do that.
We are kind of used to that. We had a great history of those D tackles. Like, we lost Jalen
Twyman, Cansey.
So,
which I guess is only 2. But it's weird that we just kept getting elite defensive tackles at the collegiate stage. Obviously working on trusting each other in practice is a huge way that the defensive line could fortify coming out of the bye week. Another way that they could do so is through additions, and that's getting healthier. I don't know if you saw this against who is the team that we beat the piss out of? I already forget.
Youngstown State.
It was Youngstown State. We beat them by a lot, but 3 of possibly our top 4 defensive tackles did not play. And it looks like a couple guys are trending towards getting back on the field, including Sean Fitzsimmons. So my question to you is, how pivotal is the timing of this bye week to getting guys back on the field, not just on the defensive line, but elsewhere, to fortify this Pitt Panthers team?
I think it's huge because, like you said, Sean Fitzsimmons, he hadn't played yet. I'm not allowed to say what I have or haven't seen at practice, but I can tell you that Pitt feels confident that that there's guys getting healthy again after 5 weeks of college play, and one of those weeks they didn't have to play. And the 4th week, they intentionally rested guys like Desmond Reed, who was definitely getting used a lot. I think they could not put Desmond Reed on punt and kick return anymore. I think just let him be running back. That'd be nice.
But it's so cool.
It's cool. But do you want him for November when you're hoping to be in the ACC championship chase? If you overuse, he's not an Izzy Abanikanda. He's still he's strong, but he ain't thick. And that's like they gotta let him. They gotta have a pitch count for Desmond Reed, I think, just to preserve him, because you want him fresh when it's time to go up against guys, and you're hoping to be going up against a team like Miami in Charlotte in the ACC championship, which I do not think is out of the realm of possibility for this Pitt team.
Ooh. Oh, tell me more.
No, not yet. 1 week at a time.
No, we don't want
1 week at a time.
1 week at a time. So Dude's kind of, was it abnormal what he did on Monday, which was give like kind of an injury report? He name dropped 3 guys who have not been playing. Yes. He mentioned Des Reed, Jules Goff, and Fitzsimmons, 2 of whom have not suited up this season, and told us, not specifics, but a little bit about their injury status and when we might be able to see them. What is going on there? Is the Dews softening up a little bit and coming into the modern day, or how should we be reading into that?
Did he just know Jerry was going to ask and he wanted to get ahead of it?
I think he partly does. He does like to just mess with Jerry a lot. They have a really funny relationship. But I do think Dews is softening up a little bit this year. We got to go to a spring scrimmage, and I had like when he offered that to us, we were like, "Are you okay? Like are you serious?" Like Jerry's like, "I've never been to one of these," and so I think that he is softening up a little bit now. Like again, he's still very protective. Like he wanted to practice indoor in a really good weather time because he was afraid that there were Mountaineer fans in the hills above the Steelers facility recording him.
They are hill folk.
They are hill folk. Yes. But at the same time, I do think there's a part of him that's easing up a little bit when it comes to things. He very much still very paranoid. And as I think head coaches should be, you should be the ever watchful eye of making sure that your program or your team, your clubhouse, whatever it is intact and protected. But yeah, I did think it was interesting to say that. But I wonder if that's also maybe a sign of his confidence in this team right now. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna let them know these guys are playing, and I don't care. Now here's the other thing I will say. Pat Narduzzi is a liar at times because I covered the 2020 season, and it was the week that they were about to play Miami, and I think it was right after the BC lost the missed extra point loss. And that all that week I had written I was talking to him, and they're like, oh yeah, Kenny's going to do this. We're excited to get down there. And Kenny's been a great leader this year, blah, blah, blah. He's stepping up so much. I land in Miami. I get a phone call. Hey, so Kenny didn't travel. I said, I'm sorry, what? And so I had written this whole preview about how Kenny Pickett this was his big chance to show the world that he was the man. And I was talking to Pat like Kenny Pickett was going to play, and he didn't even try that. He was never going to play. And so then, they go on like a 3-game loser streak or whatever that year, and they get blown out by Notre Dame, and Paris Ford leaves, and they're getting ready to go to Florida State. And I'm traveling to Tallahassee, and I'm writing about, man, Joey Allen. I mean, maybe this is the week that he put something together. They need to pull some miracles.
Those are dark days.
And then I'm walking the streets of Tallahassee. By the way, one of the craziest days of my life, because that was the day that it was announced that Joe Biden beat Trump in the election, and that's the state capital of Florida, and people were insane down there. That's a whole other story. But as I'm walking the streets of Tallahassee, I get a phone call. It's like, hey, Kenny Pickett did make the travel list this week. And I'm like, we just talked to Pat all week about how Joey Allen's making progress and he's going to be the star of this game. You lied to my face. And then, of course, they picked out and won the game, and Kenny Pickett led them to win the rest of the games that season, and that led to the 2021 season, and things worked out great for Pitt. But Pat Narduzzi can be a liar at times. So is he lying to us now? I actually don't think so, because I do think that these guys are getting healthy. We've seen the clues, just in watching warm-ups in the past couple games. But at the same time, I say always be wary when Pat Narduzzi gives you a nugget.
Well, I love how you said his honesty might be because he's so confident.
I think it is part of it
about facing North Carolina, because you look at their schedule, their wins and their losses.
I want to be clear. I want to clarify that it's not just about facing North Carolina. I think he's just confident about this team in general. I don't think it has anything to do with the Tar Heels.
I don't know. I think he's obfuscating. I think Reed's going to be out, and he's preparing UNC to face the fastest running back in the country, and then damn Carter right in your nose.
That would be really funny. Dan Carter, man.
I think I just called him Damn Carter, which is even better. We're going to stick with that one going. Yeah, that's Damn Carter.
Damn Carter. That's what they say to me.
Whenever you ask a question that requires unveiling any information at all, that's the response you get.
Yeah. Pat does ask me sometimes, like I asked him about starting fast against West Virginia. And he was like, you have a recorder in this office? Because we just had this conversation. And I'm like, no, it's just a normal question, Pat. But he does accuse me of spying on the team sometimes.
Well, now that Noah isn't there spying on the team, someone has to. So he's going to find who the next one's going to be.
Shout out Noah Hiles.
Rest in peace, Noah Hiles.
Rest in peace.
Vanish to the past.
So I think where Squid was getting is what is the vibe going into North Carolina?
What is the vibe? The vibe is this team still is excited and confident, but they still know they haven't played a complete game. And I think it's a combination of, I think Pat Narduzzi did a rewrite of leadership and saying, hey guys, the prove it message is real. Like last year, we thought we were hot stuff. We weren't. We got our butts handed to us. This year, we got to prove to everyone that was the bump in the road. That's not the trend. The trend was where we were going with winning the ACC championship, then winning 9 games, getting a Sun Bowl win. That's what you got to prove. And I think from the veteran leadership, from the young guys who've come in, like one thing I think was really impressive, Isaiah Neal, for a guy that flips off double birds during a punt return.
Allegedly.
It's
alleged. We just all saw it.
His presence as a redshirt freshman is impressive to me, that he understands. Like we're talking to him and he's saying, we're asking him about, hey, what are you guys doing? And he talked about in the defensive line room alone, things are different. The tone is different. Like last year, coach would be talking and there'd be like a player making a joke, and the player would be like a leader on the team. And we'd be like, what? And I'd be sitting there and I'm like, I'm the freshman. I can't say anything because I'm the young guy, but like that shouldn't be happening. And he's like, this year, when coach is talking, nobody talks. It's like there's a different tone. Everyone's, you're still having fun. You're still enjoying each other, but there's a time for business. And I think that this team has stood on business in their first 4 games. And I think that they're understanding how to be professionals in their preparation and how to carry that into game environments. And there's also still like you're, balancing it, because like after Cincinnati, I think it was after Cincinnati or West Virginia. I forget which week it was, but Pat Narduzzi came in on Sunday. I think it was West Virginia. And he said that PJ O'Brien had to tell him to smile because he was just like so unhappy with how they had to win the game. And PJ's like, Coach, we won. He was like, yeah, I don't care. We got to do better. And I think from Pat Narduzzi to assistant head coach Corey Sanders to Archie Collins to Cade Bell to all these coaches, I think they have done a great job relaying the message down the line. You have not played your best football yet, and not even close. And I think that's what should excite Pitt fans, is that they have not played a complete game, and they're 4-0 for the first time since 2000, undefeated in out-of-conference play for the first time ever since being in a conference in 1991. All that is very encouraging. Could this derail at any moment? Absolutely. Sports are crazy. We've seen crazier things happen. But if this team wants it, it is there. There is talent. There is scheme. Cade Bell's offense really makes sense. And one thing I think that he does a really good job of, like, for example, I did my film study. I don't think Eli Holstein is cycling through 3 and 4 progressions in his plays yet. I think that Cade Bell has done a really good job of scheming up, hey, this is your one primary read. This is your check down. Neither of those there, run. And I think that they have done such a good job scheming up how to get those open at the college level that it has made it work. And I think that it's just taken Eli to trust, and he's said this a lot, the word trust. It's taken him to trust that those things will be there for them to happen. And for learning lessons like that in your first 4 games as a college player, and to be 4-0 and have 12 touchdown passes and 2 rushing touchdowns, and in conversations with, could he be like the best first year player in college football this year? There's there's a lot going on there, and I think there's a lot of positives. And if you keep working at it and you keep building at it, could make for a really special thing.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously has elite potential, and I think he could be unbelievable back on Alabama in 2 years.
Why are you doing that to yourself? That's another thing, though. I do think that's another level of this, is that I think Pitt definitely gets it as far as what they need to do to get and keep players. Like there were players asking for raises last season that got them, and to keep guys around. I mean, the fact that they kept Gavin Bartholomew was such a huge thing. And even in a time, they're still not using him in the offense, which is still bizarre to me. Which is, I if you had told me that Gavin would have the stats that he has now, and that the offense was like second best in the ACC, I would have called you a liar. But yeah, I think there's a lot of really good signs in all of this and what the offense is doing and how they're moving forward.
They got him a car the day after Sluka left UNLV.
That was definitely.
I don't know how related that is. I like to think it's directly related.
I'll just say, look at who coached Sluka and draw some parallels. That's all I'll say.
Squid, ask a question so I can Google real quick.
Wait, you don't know? Wait. Are you joking?
Oh my God, it was Brendan Marion. I thought I was about to look up, like,
you said it, not me.
Why don't you go
who's that? I don't even know
go Google it.
Nice. Crushed it. Good pun. No, I thought you were making a reference to his Holy Cross days.
No.
I'm sorry. Was he Holy Cross?
Yeah,
he was in the FCS, and so was our previous offensive coordinator. My brain's not working super well, but
right.
Yeah, no, that would be exactly like Pat Narduzzi to try to rub it in to a former assistant that may or may not have, but definitely did piss him off.
Yeah, there's
never know.
There's not a lot of friendly vibes there. I can say that much. But I mean, look, Pat Narduzzi, he is a very good coach. He is a very good leader. I think that he understands. I think he is very good at setting a tone, getting the message down the line and being like, let's go do this thing. I also think that he has gotten increasingly better at setting the tone for his guys for his coaches to work and letting them work and not micromanaging them and letting them go out and do what they need to do.
Yeah, I mean, Cade Bell is awesome.
Cade Bell's doing a heck of a job. And I think that like for example, and one thing that tells me that Cade Bell does have a lot more autonomy is I think it was which game was it? It might have been the West Virginia game. With the rushing yards. No. It was Youngstown. It was Youngstown State when Eli got pulled for Nate. And Eli Holstein joked with us and he said, Coach told me, I asked Coach if I could go back in so I could get my rushing yards because I wanted official 100 rushing yards to go with my thing. And he said, Coach told me no. We asked Pat Narduzzi about that. And Pat's like, I didn't tell him no. I wouldn't make that call. That's Cade's call. So he probably talked to Cade about that. And sure enough, that's what it was. That was purely Cade's call. So at least that tells me there is true autonomy given to Cade Bell with how to run this offense. Pat Narduzzi is like he's kind of like the president. He's like, you give him the bill, he has veto power if it's absolutely insane. Like if all of a sudden Chris Carter's out there toting the rock. They'd be like, all right, guys, that's enough. That's enough. No, I'm not signing off on that. But like everything else, he trusts his coaches. And I think that's set up a really good environment for his coaches to work, get closer to these players and get the best out of them to produce what you're seeing on the field.
Yeah. And that's a worry that we had because yes, we were going from Frank Signetti to Cade Bell, complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Was, let him have full reign, run his offense, how he wants to run his offense, or are there going to be some training wheels being like, hey, maybe let's not go that fast. But we're going fast, we're scoring fast, and everyone's happy.
I was going to say, you probably could have gotten at least 5 games at running back last year before Deuce stepped in and pulled you, and that's how I know he gives his OC autonomy.
Oh, I do not. I would not have wanted to. I would have broke both my knees probably in a play. That would not have been great. But again, I think that's a kudos to Pat Narduzzi because I think there have definitely been signs of him stepping in before, and to adjust your coaching style, to adjust your creed and how you think things should work based off of what's been going on. I think sometimes that humility can be so important to achieving your best and getting out of your own way. And if that continues to be part of the success story of Pitt, that's something that Pat Narduzzi deserves credit for, even though that means he created his own adversity at times. There's times we see coaches do that and not get out of their way and ruin a great opportunity. And I think right now Pitt has a great opportunity at 4-0. And if they keep marching forward and this keeps working out and everyone keeps succeeding, Pat Narduzzi deserves credit for being the guy that stirred the pot and made it go.
We talked about it earlier. Dews is letting reporters see spring scrimmages. He's talking about injuries a little bit more. Do you think that getting Cade Bell in and seeing what like a fun modern offense is was the equivalent of like American guy who only eats steak and potatoes every meal, and then he tries a taco with like a little bit of hot sauce on it? Is like, what is this ethnic food? Oh my goodness. And then his world is expanded. Is Cade Bell Pat Narduzzi's taco with some chorizo and a little bit of hot sauce on it?
Well, I don't know where it was. There was a moment, it might have been on the ACC network. They had Pat Narduzzi on.
Mm-hmm.
And the point that I knew this season might be a little bit different is because they asked Pat how he was going to fix his defense because the run defense wasn't very good and like overall wasn't very good. And I was expecting a typical, we got to get to the quarterback more, whatever. He said we got to score more points. And I was like, whoa. They asked him about fixing your defense. He just said your offense. So it's in there somewhere. We forget it, but sometimes he knows what he's talking about. And it just took like a traumatic 3-9 season to bring it out.
Hey, but again, sometimes you can be defined sometimes you will be defined by how you respond to your worst moment. You think back to, celebrities who maybe make a big mistake, and how do they respond to that? That's how they're often defined. Did they accept responsibility? Players, same thing. The interception, like for example, Justin Fields, if he had come out and after his fumble at midfield, gone out, and even though they lost the game, but not scored 3 straight touchdown drives, I think that would have set a completely different tone for him. But responding to adversity, and to even your own self-inflicted adversity, can also be defining. So I think that that's a very good sign for Pat Narduzzi, that he has at least had this, and that I think that so far he's maintained it. Now, let's see what happens if Pitt goes through a loss or two. How does he respond to that? Will he butt heads? I think we've seen in the past that he has butt heads with his offensive coordinator, even when there is a lot of success. Mark Whipple, Matt Canada. But I think right now he's handled it well, and he deserves credit for handling it well.
He absolutely does, 100%. I don't think we've applauded him enough after ripping him to pieces the entire offseason on this program. But and you hinted at it. I don't know if we should be ready to take a victory lap yet. Pat him too hard on the back, no pun intended, because our schedule the rest of the way, it's a little treacherous. UNC might be the worst team we play the rest of the season, and you wouldn't have expected it looking at the schedule to start the year. Who would have thought that that McCord would look as workable as he does in Syracuse? That Cal would be whatever Cal is. The Calgorithm. BC looking really strong in their first year under Bill O'Brien, and then of course Clemson and Louisville. So things could my personal thing, I think if we lose against UNC, things could go off the rails very quickly for how well as they started. So my question to you is, outside of Clemson, which remaining opponent should we be the most worried about?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm looking at SMU right now. I'm looking at SMU. I think that's a team that you're not used to. You're on the road against. I think there can be some familiarity with North Carolina, and I think that even though you're on the road this week, I think coming off a bye, you could do some damage there. Coming back home for Cal and Syracuse, I think can be very helpful. That can be there, but you're going on the road into the South against a team that you ain't never played before, that you know nothing about, and also, where is Pitt at that time? Like, for example, imagine if Pitt's 7-0 going in that situation. Do you start feeling yourself then? Because you're already bowl eligible. Yeah, squid. But like, you're already bowl eligible, right? So like, now you're feeling like, okay, well, like college football playoffs ain't out of the periphery now. But going up against a team like that, could you get caught off guard? Yeah, I think you could. I look at that, but again, I think that Pitt's biggest thing right now is they need to play their style of ball, because when they've played their style of ball, they've been very tough to stop. So that means going out, like Pat's saying, score points, ask questions later. Don't worry about how fast it took, how long it took. Just make the reads, attack, get the job done. Like if you're the Avengers, Captain America asked Iron Man, he was like, what's your plan of attack? He's like, I have a plan, attack. That's Cade Bell's offense. Just go and get it. And I think that's where if Pitt sets that tone on offense, which is the better unit right now, I think by a decent bit, then Pitt's defense will get more chances to be aggressive and figure out its own pacing. And if those two things happen, that's when this team can get really nasty and maybe actually play some complete football when they start ACC play.
Chris, that's probably the correct answer, but I'm gonna play it safe here and say UNC is our biggest game because it's the next.
You know what? That's the Pat Narduzzi answer right there, Squid.
Yeah. Compare me to Pat Narduzzi. I love it.
1-0, baby. You got to go 1-0 every week.
So focusing on that game coming down the pipeline, and thank you for that reminder, Squid Narduzzi. What do you think the keys to Saturday's game are? How can Pitt beat UNC and start things off 1-0 in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
I think one thing is the player that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, Omarion Hampton, the running back. He is a threat. He has both on the ground and through the air, but particularly through the screen game. North Carolina is not dumb. They see how Pitt plays. They've beaten Pitt. They're going to try to run the ball, and teams have run the ball. Like Kiner, Corey Kiner, ran the ball on him. C.J. Donaldson's ran the ball on him. North Carolina is going to try to do that, but they're also going to compound on that and catch Pitt off guard in its aggressiveness. And Pat Narduzzi noted they have a really good screen game. I think Hampton has the 17th most screen yardage in the country right now. So that's something that Pat Narduzzi, when I said that, he didn't even flinch. He's like, "Yep, that's correct." And I think that Pitt is preparing itself to be like, "Hey, we still want to be aggressive and fast and attack with our defense, but we've got to have these checks in place so that when that guard leaks out and they go out there to try to turn into lead blockers, our D tackles, our DNs are like, hey, we're right on it. We're following them. Like that's got to be your rule. And the linebackers reading the same, read your keys. I think that's key number one. Stop Hampton on the ground and in the air. Don't let the run game or the screen game dictate the pace for North Carolina's offense. You do that, you're in a good place to start. Number two, sling the doggone football. I watched James Madison torch this team. That quarterback looked like he was Patrick Mahomes at times with what he was doing to North Carolina. This is Eli Holstein's chance to light up a scoreboard. This defense can get after the quarterback, but they will have many breakdowns with Cade Bell's offense and the way that it flows. This needs to be the game where Eli Holstein doesn't come out in the first and second quarter and it is like, oh, we're a little lost and I figured it out in the last 5 minutes or the last quarter of play. This needs to be the game where, like, if there's a hiccup, it's like for a drive or two, but he's putting up points and he's consistently doing so and he's putting pressure on it. And you can't score every drive. That's not realistic, but get that pace of play going, get Desmond Reed going, get Konate Mumfield going, get this offense hurting you in so many different ways so that you make North Carolina a bad defense punch drunk, and then you're dictating the pace of play there. So two things there. And then my big point always for Pitt, because it just always is with the way they play defense, don't give up the deep ball. Don't give up the easy, tight end up the middle, guy down the sideline because just one guy got beat. Be better at that. And that's something we talked about with Corey Sanders, safeties coach and assistant head coach, with on Tuesday, about, hey, we worked on these fundamentals. I think we've done a good job at that, but we're getting better at that. So you do those three things. You stuff Omarion Hampton. And again, you might not be able to limit him to 40 yards, but make sure he can't take over the game, both in the screen and the run. Do that. Let Eli Holstein cook, get him cooking, and then just take away the deep ball. I think Pitt has the script to not just win handily against North Carolina, but again, got to go in and execute it.
I love it. I think we could do it. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Last question, Mike Tomlin, hot seat?
You guys
start Russ next week?
Start. You'd say, now you try to get me in trouble. I think that both Pittsburgh coaches at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex are in a good place right now. Both are, one's 4-0 and in a good place to start off the ACC well, and one's 3-1 in the top the AFC North, and an AFC North that I think looks kind of not good outside of Baltimore. Who knows? Maybe he won't be, but yeah, I think he's fine.
Last time I suggested the idea that Tomlin needs to be examined, you shot me with a Nerf gun. So
I did.
I'm glad that we're doing this through a computer screen this time. No. You still have it?
Oh, wait. There we go.
Chris Carter.
I put it right there. It was so funny you said that. I'm like, I think that's right there.
You were ready for us.
I'm always strapped.
Chris, thank you so much. And we'll see you around the tailgate scene soon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again to Chris Carter for joining us. Now is the time for the sports book. That was a really bad intro, but this is usually Dylan's thing. Dylan is not here for this episode. He's taking a much-earned vacation to Nashville, so he's definitely just hammered in a honky-tonk right now as we record this. Dylan, if you're listening, have a good time and find a little hole-in-the-wall barbecue spot. Or, wait, no, go to Hattie B's Chicken. Go to Hattie B's Chicken and get everything on the menu. Anyway, the sports book is the segment that we are about to do right now. You guys know how it works. This is the part where we make our predictions about Pitt's game against UNC, throwing a couple creative lines that we came up with ourselves. You aren't going to find them anywhere else, and you certainly aren't going to be able to bet them at a sports book, especially if you are a student athlete, in which case don't even skip this segment. Just skip the segment. It's not for you. Anyway, so for starters, we have a unique little twofer. Over under 299.5 passing yards and 2.5 passing touchdowns for Eli Holstein.
So to clarify, he has to go over both if I pick over. And he has to go under both if I pick under for it to be right. Is it a combo bet? Is it a parlay?
The way I envisioned it,
yeah.
The way I envisioned it was you can say over one, under the other. I just didn't want to make them separate selections. Do you think that it should be a parlay?
Yeah, it's a parlay. You
Okay.
fade the parlay, or you can take the parlay.
So no half points are awarded?
No, it's all or nothing. So if
Okay,
he goes
all or nothing.
over one and under the other, both sides lose.
Okay, then it's a parlay. Yep. The Holstein parlay.
So I guess I'll go first since I invented this rule. I'm going to say over. I think we're just going to air it out, and I think we should air it out. Chris Carter said, "Sling the rock." Cade Bell's been in the lab looking at James Madison film for 2 weeks. He knows how to dissect this defense. I'm taking over. Eli Holstein has done this every time, except the time he got taken out early because we were beating the other team so bad. He still almost got there.
Can't give Cade Bell 2 weeks of preparation. I've been saying it for years. I'm going over as well. 303 touchdowns has pretty much been his stat line. And like you said, Squid, every game that he has finished or almost finished, of course, with the exception of that Youngstown State game. So I think that they're going to air it out, and he is going to once again win the ACC Rookie of the Year, which would make it his 5th time doing so, one short of the ACC record for number of times. Dylan chose under. He is obviously not a believer and definitely didn't hear that pump up talk we just got from Chris Carter about airing it out. So we can probably chalk that one up as points for us and not for Dylan.
Yeah, but Dylan's wearing a cowboy hat. He's having a good time. Looking like another Pitt podcaster out there. Moving on.
It's a really obscure one. Over or under 119.5 yards for O'Marion Hampton. Running back for UNC, one of the top backs in the country.
I zoned out. Did you say rushing yards or total yards?
Rushing yards.
Rushing yards. Okay. I'm going to say under, but I think it's going to be pretty close to 119 yards.
How
I remember
close?
CJ Donaldson. Doesn't
matter.
It's going to be under, but it's going to be up near 100, I bet. I think CJ Donaldson had a pretty good game, and I was surprised by how few yards he had. It seemed like he had a lot more than he did, but at the end of the day, Pitt did a solid job bottling him up like just enough. And I'm hoping that happens again. Just get off the field on those like third and shorts. Don't let them get like 8 yards on first and second down. And then I think we'll be okay. Because if UNC is dominating the O-line, he's picking up 8, 12 yards of carry on first and second down, then it could be a long day. But I think he's very clearly their focal point, and we're going to be locked in and doing what Pat Narduzzi defenses do. So no big plays. Play just good enough to not let him dominate.
I agree, Squid. My big fear is that UNC is going to see what Cincinnati did very successfully for 3 quarters and attempt to replicate that, in which case O'Marion Hampton would go over and UNC would attempt to just sit on us. However, I think having seen what Pitt saw the last couple weeks out of UNC's defense, they're going to turn this into a track meet, and it's going to make it a little bit harder for UNC to hand the ball to O'Marion Hampton 30 times like I imagine they're planning to. So I'm also going to go under 119 and a half rushing yards for O'Marion Hampton, as is Dylan. Next, over or under 36 minutes time of possession for the North Carolina Tar Heels. I just talked about it. There's a good chance North Carolina tries to sit on Pitt the way that they saw Cincinnati do. And Pitt has not won time of possession in a game yet this year. But Squid, do you think Pitt loses the time of possession to the tune of 36-24 or worse?
That is a tough one to gauge because we could be dominating the game and still lose time of possession. So I'm going to say we read the prop again. What do we got? Pitt has to have under 20 minutes.
Will UNC have greater than 36 minutes time of possession?
That seems like a lot. I'm going to say under. They're going to win the time of possession battle, but not by that much. I don't think their offense is that good.
Dylan would agree with you. However, I do not. I agree 36 is a lot of minutes, but it would be the third time this year that Pitt allowed the opposing team to hold the football for 36 minutes or more. It is not a portender of who's going to win the game, as Pitt won both of those games. However, I do think that the entire UNC strategy, as with any team we play this year that has a good line and a good running back and a weaker defense, they are going to try to sit on the ball.
Sounds like you did some research on that question. I admittedly did not. Good insight, but you're getting it wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of insane that Dylan's been as bad at this as he has, because you have to do research to set the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just kind of equipped with more information than us, but still misses every time. Weird. Moving on. This one I think you actually put in. Will Pitt score over or under 16.5 first half points?
You're going first here.
I'm going first here. I'll go over. My entire outlook on this game is Pitt starting hot and coming out of the gate swinging, and I think that's to the tune of 24 points, 30 points, 27 points, any number that is greater than 17. So I do think that Pitt will hit that over on the first half. But I'm curious to hear how you came up with that number and what your outlook is.
So I think this is one of those lines that you look at and you automatically think, oh, that's weird. They'll definitely get more points than that. But then you start to see everyone agrees. And then you think, what does Vegas know that I don't know? So
What does
at
Squid
first
know that I
glance, you'd
don't know?
think yes. But a bye week can go one of two ways. You can spend all this time prepping for UNC. You can be so locked in. You come out swinging. You can score 28 in the first half. But the offense is rolling. Maybe the bye week will slow us down a little bit. Let's not forget the slow first half against Cincinnati. So I'm just putting it out there. Could get off to a slow start. Would have been a little more intriguing if the line was 20.5, I believe. But I'm going to say over as well. But I am worried about a slow start just because it's a bye week. You never know.
Okay. Love it. Love it. Dylan goes over as well. So all three of us. First touchdown scorer. As a reminder, we have nerfed Desmond Reed, who is now worth 1 point. All other participants in the game are worth 2, with special consideration if you want to take like defense or special teams or something funky like that. Squid, you first.
I'm going Poppy Williams.
Poppy Williams. I like that one. Do any rationale behind that, or are we just throwing darts at a dartboard?
I think we're going to air it out early. And once we're down in that red zone, Cade Bell's going to draw something diabolical up for him. He was doing it early in the year with Montfield. Now we're going to catch him off guard with Poppy Williams.
Love it. I'm very tempted to say Dan Carter, but there's something really attractive about a fresh-legged Des Reed. Even if it's only worth 1 point, 1 in the hands better than 2 in the bush.
So you're going to copy Dylan?
I suppose I am copying Dylan, who is also taking Des Reed.
I don't know if that's allowed, and Dylan is the rule maker of the sports book, and he is not here to defend himself, so I guess we'll just have to allow it.
Nice. Okay. Last prop. Pitt is 2.5 point favorites as of 9:35 p.m. Tuesday, October 1st on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So, Squid, I need you to tell me if Pitt covers and your final score prediction.
I had the betting yips on over-unders in college football this year. I think every time I saw a matchup and thought, oh, that's going to be high scoring, it ends up like 20-14. And anytime I see a matchup that seems like it's going to be a rock fight, it ends up being high scoring. But I got back on track by hitting the over in the Alabama-Georgia game that had 1 million points. So I feel good about my instincts here. It's going to be high scoring. All Pitt games are going to be high scoring this year. I'm saying Pitt wins 42-31. I think we pull away.
And of course, the implied cover. By the way, the over under 64.5 on this one. So you obviously think that they would shatter that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt's offense is Pitt's offense. We're gonna put up some points. I said our defense is gonna be pretty good. We're gonna bottle up Hampton, but big plays will happen. Our defense will be out there a lot. So I expect another Big 12-esque score.
Okay. I'm here for it. Squid, there's something interesting about this game that we haven't talked about yet. And I'd love to shed some light on it. Mac Brown retired 2 weeks ago. They lost 70-50 or whatever to James Madison. He walked into the locker room and said, "Guess I shouldn't coach this football team anymore." And then everybody in that locker room went and texted their favorite journalist, "Hey, Mac Brown just retired." And then when Mac Brown left and went out and faced reporters, and they said, "Hey, we just got like 30 texts that you retired. Care to comment?" said, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding." And then they went on and pretended nothing happened. That was a week and a half ago.
Weird.
That is a thing that happened. And you know what? That would terrify me about the potential outcome for this football game. Had they not blown a 20-point lead to Duke last week. When I heard this happened, I was convinced that they were going to rally the troops, that, maybe Mac Brown was just looking for his sympathy, trying to galvanize his boys, around him. "No, coach, we love you. Please stay. You're our coach. You're the man. We love you, old guy." And that, they would hoist the colors and they would just beat Duke into the ground. And they did for a half of football, went up 20-0. And then down they came like a castle made of sand on the seashore.
So he didn't retire after the last game. He's still their head coach.
He didn't retire, nor did his team rally around him. So it seems to me like there are some cultural problems, locker room problems, at the very least, bad vibes surrounding that program. And based on how they respond in the second half against Duke, there's something rotten in Denmark, or whatever the hell Shakespeare wrote. Pitt's going to cover. I think it's more likely Pitt kicks the shit out of them than any other outcome. I'm going to play it a little conservative and say we win 31-17, but I knock on wood as I say this, because I don't know. Pitt feels like an easy team to mush. I think we could skull drag UNC. I think they're in a bad place. I think we are in a great place, which might be all the more reason for us to lose, given our history. But I think everything here says Pitt beats them with hammers.
I was surprised when you said that you could see UNC rallying around that, because we might be a little shell-shocked by UNC. They always seem to beat us unless we have Kenny Pickett and are playing at home. But if you look at it, they've got an old guy head coach who retired after a game for like 12 minutes. They lost their starting quarterback after like a quarter. And then they already switched quarterbacks again. And they lost by, what was it, like 30 to James Madison. And then they blew a huge lead to Duke. All of that says this team is in a bad place and is facing a 4-0 team coming off of a bye week. So we could all say, "Oh, it's Pitt. This is the game we're going to lose." I'm done saying same old Pitt. No more pitting. We're done pitting.
I love it. We're done pitting. However, if we lose this game, I'm absolutely calling the hard left turn into the highway divider. If we lose this game, I'm calling my shot on the absolute spiral down the stretch. But that's not going to happen.
Want to know
because
this
we are skull dragging, hammer beating, filling a sock full of nickels, and busting that ass. So
Look.
Dylan agrees. He says 35-28 Pitt, which is not exactly an ass beating, but relative to our performance anytime we've ever gone down to Chapel Hill, I think that constitutes an ass beating.
Just go 1-0 this week. That's like a football coach thing to say, but as a fan, being undefeated is awesome. Just give us one more week. Please be undefeated for one more week, and then we'll worry about the next game after this one. Just let us be happy and undefeated for one more week. And I'll keep saying it.
Because if we go undefeated this week, you know what we get?
And an opportunity to be undefeated again after next week.
With a tiny little number next to our name. Think about it, Pitt fans. Think about it, Pitt players. The coveted tiny little number next to your name. It'll start with a 2. It will. It will certainly start with a 2.
We'll be okay with that for now.
But if you go 1-0 the week after, and the week after, and you go the 1-0 the week after that.
Okay, this is getting dangerous.
That tiny little number gets smaller. I'm just saying.
I was all proud of my rallying cry to no more pitting, blah, blah, blah. That might have mushed us. We might have gone too far, but it doesn't
definitely
matter.
gone too far. We're talking about ranking Pitt, so we've definitely crossed the threshold into having jinxed our football team. But hey,
yeah, let's end the episode. We're happy.
Yeah, let's. Should we just cut it cold here?
Yeah.
Hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.
Please win.
Please.